Greetings, my fellow hunters, and welcome to the third hunt of this Halloween special. And today, it's another special treat, as this series is something I wanted to talk about for the longest time, but just couldn't do it until I had the right skill, and I think now is the time. The series that inspired the series I love, from Bloodborne to Dark Souls. The Berserk franchise, so specifically, the Berserk 2016 anime. And today, Guts will be joining me on this hunt. Ha! So, let the hunt begin, my hunters. The story of Berserk is a little bit difficult to pin down because there's not one overarching plot. You see, it has different mini plots in it. So the first plot was basically about Guts trying to find the apostles. Then he heads back to a friend that was supposed to keep his wife Casca. Casca escapes. And now it's up to Guts to find her before something bad happens to her. On the way, he also meets a couple of old friends from the first plot. And then after that, he goes to a place where there's this mad priest called Monzu or something, who is completely and utter bonkers. And it's difficult for me to say this because the plot in this series doesn't... It's cohesive, but at the same time fractured. Events don't completely move on to the next. It's difficult for me to pin down an exact moment, but the overarching plot, I'd argue, is that Guts wants to find the apostles, get rid of the apostles because of what they did to his friends years ago, and there's also the subplot of that he wants to get Casca to the fairy kingdom because Puck, the little fairy, thought it would be a good idea to go there. So yeah, for me, it's a little difficult to pin down the plot exactly, but it's not overcomplicated. It's very simple and enjoyable, especially with the characters. For the most part, the characters in Berserk are solidly written, they are very intriguing, and they are enjoyable to watch, as they do have their own arcs and their own struggles personally and outwardly. And it's an interesting way of seeing things from their perspective and how they've gone from a mundane life to now fighting demons on a regular basis and dealing with the darkness that men can produce. And overall, I do find them entertaining. So we'll be starting off with the main protagonist. So to start off with, we have Guts. Guts is a lone swordsman sort of type, but unlike, say, Kirito, Guts is actually quite likable in a lot of ways. Because you feel sorry for the guy. He's been through so much traumatization all his life that you just want the guy to have a happy ending for once. And he actually grows from being a lone swordsman to actually having compatriots and allies with him. He learns that you can't go it alone all the time, and that if you're with your friends and allies, it brings you strength, because when he lost his compatriots, he felt like he had to go it alone. But the other characters that were in the series actually reignite the fact that, yeah, you can't go alone all the time. You need friends. It's really heartwarming to see it how he begins so cold and malicious, but yeah, at the end he's still cold and malicious, but he actually has a kind heart now. He actually feels like he's growing and changing. It's a nice breath of fresh air to see this sort of thing, instead of just being stock, grim characters all the time. Even then, he's not bad. However, I can't say that for all the characters. To start off, we'll talk about Ishirodu next. Ishirodu is what I would say the kid character. He's there because you need to have the kids in the series, because he is the annoying one. He's basically the sort of character that you just wish White Guts keeps around with him. Because Ishirodu is talentless, he gets into more trouble than he should, and he just causes problems for the groups because he goes into fights that he knows he shouldn't go into, but wants to prove that he's the best and that Guts Sensei is gonna look out for me. Even though it's best if he just stays at the back and just observes and be support instead of the main offensive. He does do that later on, but you'd think he would keep doing that from the start, not later on when you realize, whoops, my skills aren't that good. Frankly, he's not the worst one. Unfortunately, the title of the worst character in Berserk goes to Puck, the little annoying fairy assistant. Just a side note, why was it popular in the 80s to have little annoying fairy companions? Or was it the 90s? Oh yeah, the 90s. Why was it that it was a cool thing to have a little fairy companion? Navi was like, hey. But yes, back to Puck. Puck is a useless character because he doesn't do anything of note. Sure, he mentions about the fairy kingdom to Guts and the others, but that's it. Puck could have been written out afterwards, and I doubt anything would have changed. He's there nothing to advance the plot. He doesn't fight at all. He's just there to be a nuisance to the rest because he's a dimwit-dum. Honestly, he didn't know even himself was a fairy. You'd think a fairy would know that he's a fairy, but nope, apparently not. Yeah, Puck can get a little annoying, but yeah, no, he's the worst character in the series. The next character to mention is the swordsman Speical, or Serpico. I can never get his name down right. But basically, I'd argue Speical is the straight man of the series, and a very good one at that, because he tries to keep things calm and rational compared to Guts, who is brash and reckless at times, but not in the bad way. But back to Serpico. Yeah, Speical is a straight guy. He tries to put reason and logic into a lot of things and doesn't head-on rush onto things, so it's nice to see things interesting from his perspective. But there is also this side plot about how he's loyal to Lady Farnday or something. I can never get her name right. Speaking of which, Lady Franze is a little bit difficult to pin down, because at the beginning she was a obsessive, dangerous sort of character that would kill me if I got in her way. And she was also a bit of a sadist at times, as she enjoys torturing people, and that's never good. But after her encounter with Guts and that her faith was shaken, she realized the horror she's done, and she wishes to redeem herself by taking care of Casca. Now, she does this by treating Casca like a sister, as she tries her best to protect her and defend her from everything. And I'd say she does have a good arc in the beginning. At the beginning, she was cruel, but at the end, she learned to be calm and caring towards people. It was a nice change of pace, honestly. And honestly, it was good. It was really good. The last character I'll be talking about is Shirke, or Shirke. I don't know how to pronounce her name. It's tricky on my tongue. But anyway, Shirke is the intelligence of the group. She is very well versed in all things magical, a skilled magician for her age, which is very impressive as considering she's just a young girl. As well, she, just like Speical, is the level-headed one, as she is the one that keeps the group together tighter. As she explains things, she tries to plan things out very advanced, which makes her very intelligent and someone you don't want to mess with. But at the same time, she's still a little girl at heart, and she just has her embarrassing and funny moments as well. So as much as she tries to appear strict and unwavering in her morals and whatnot, she can be a little bit fun at times, and especially during the end when a certain thing happened to her, which I won't spoil because it is funny, that she is overall a great character, and a really good one. Overall, the characters I find are well written and fine enough. Borderline on good, minus a couple like Ishoru and Puck. I find the cast strong and engaging and well worth a watch most of the time. It's such a shame that the problem that you're going to be watching is also the biggest problem. Cough, animation, cough. Oh my, and now here comes the biggest problem with this series. The animation is horrible. I know they were trying to go for a more CGI style to save time and money on things, but it really didn't look well. There were times where I was wondering, did they skip a few frames or something? Which is a shame, because when it does work, it really does work. But 90% of the time, the animation looks off. Characters' proportions looks ridiculous. Tiny little heads. And sometimes it's big heads on little bodies. But most of the time, it's little heads on big bodies. It's so jarring at times, I just don't know what the animations were thinking when they were doing that. Seriously, did they not look at human body proportions and think, the head's not going to be so tiny compared to the body? Sure, the head's not the biggest thing, but it's not tiny like that. It looks ridiculous, and like I said, it's a damn shame because there are highlights. Certain scenes look fantastic if they were animated better, or the animation looked better. It would have worked either way. But no, the animation for the most part, it really does pain me to say this, that the animation is below average. And it pains me to say that because the other things were so good. Heck, the music was actually one of the best highlights, but because the animation was like that, I was almost convinced not to finish it. But I gotta say, the music, like I said, is really good. Skipping over the animation, but unfortunately you can't miss it, the music is superb. Some of the best soundtrack I've heard in an anime in a long time. It fits the theme so well. It has its badassery moments when Guts does something. It has its more somber moments when sad events happen. It has its more energetic moments when there's chaos happening. It's also chaotic, but at the same time, so beautifully orchestrated. It really does pump you up for an adventure. Heck, the opening is actually one of my favorite things. It has a dark theme to it, a dark tone that makes you dread what's going to happen in the series every single time you watch it. Oh boy, I love that. The ending is very somber and quiet to show that we've reached the climax of the episode and wish to relax now and to reflect on the previous actions. It's also beautiful in a way, orchestrally done well. Not that it was done by an orchestra, but it sounds fantastic. I love it every single of the way. So my final thoughts on the 2016 Berserk anime. Mixed but borderline positive, but something stopping it from me recommendation. It's the animation. As much as I boast about how I love the story, the characters, and the world, the animation is the biggest flaw in this series, and it's such a shame. If the animation was done better, I would recommend this series in a heartbeat. Souls and Born fans I would recommend you watch it, but at the same time, you're going to be watching something that you may find visually unstimulating or just borderline bad. But if you can forgive the animation, and I beg you to, please go watch it. You're missing out on a great story with great characters-ish and great music and everything about it. But I can understand if you want to skip it because of the animation. It's completely understandable. Anyway, thank you, my hunters, for watching this. Link to my Twitter and Discord down below. And as I always say, may the good blood guide your way.